Buying raw cards in today's market is a fool's errand that will lead to nothing but disappointment, failure, and wasted money. Many people will tell you that this is true, but is it really? Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Parkside Merchant channel. We cover a lot of topics related to vintage Yu-Gi-Oh! And other collectible asset categories. So if you do like this kind of content, please feel free to like and subscribe to our channel. So let's get straight down to business. There's a lot of folks out there that say the gold rush is over, right? The golden years of getting out there on eBay or TCG Player, buying up some raw cards and then discovering things that are gem mint quality, sending them out to PSA and getting, I don't know, 500x return on your investment or whatever you paid for some cheap card that's part of a binder, right? A lot of people tell you those days are long gone, right? All the good cards have been scooped up by the professionals. Everything's been slabbed that's worthy of being graded. And there's no longer any raw inventory out there that you could discover and then potentially grade, right? That tends to be the prevailing thinking among a lot of people in the market today. And this is not an accident, right? There has been a good run over the past several years where people have made quite a bit of money flipping binders and flipping raw cards and just basically buying up people's old collections and grading that inventory. So yes, it is true to a degree that this has been a successful model for some time. And there are a lot of questions about the quality of the raw cards that are still out there and whether or not there's even gradable material that hasn't yet really been discovered or introduced into the market. So I wanted to spend some time in this video talking a bit about the extent to which I agree with this perspective. The long story short is I do disagree with the notion that buying raw cards is no longer a viable proposition for people that are looking to make a return on their investment in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market when it comes to grading cards. I do have a much more detailed video on my channel that gets into this question to a degree and much more related to the wilderness of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market, right? All the stuff that's out there that people don't know about. I recommend watching that video if you want to get a bit more depth of perspective about how I see this. But for this video, I wanted to be a little bit more to the point and focus strictly on this question of, is it really too late to go out into the market and buy up raw cards that have gradable potential? So in my opinion, this recent deal that was brokered between a large syndicate of collectors in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market and the seller who appeared with that case of LOB boxes and Metal Raiders boxes that sold for over $250,000 recently. It's episodes like that in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! That suggest to me that there is still a lot out there that people just don't appreciate. And to me, it's really just a sobering reminder that if you shake the tree hard enough, right, all sorts of stuff has the potential to fall out of it, right? Obviously, the low-hanging fruit has all been plucked. All the stuff that's easy to get off the tree, everybody's already taken a shot at that stuff. But that's not to say there aren't other fruit-bearing branches, right, or offshoots or whatever, or other fun stuff hiding up in those trees, bird nests, beehives or whatever, all the things that live up in a tree, right? If you extend that comparison, a lot of the easy stuff to get has already been purchased and flipped and graded. But it's my belief that there is still stuff out there, kind of like what we saw in this recent episode with that collector who came forward with all those boxes of LOB and Metal Raiders boxes. There could be more stuff like that out there. And basically, as I've said in previous videos, I think it's much more probable that there are thousands of raw cards just out there in the market that have not yet made their way to eBay or TCG Player or elsewhere. I think that is much more probable than what we just saw recently with this massive deal where somebody shows up out of the blue with all these LOB boxes and Metal Raiders boxes, right? And then brokers a huge deal. That kind of stuff seems extraordinarily infrequent and rare. What's less rare, though, is just some random person, collector like me, for example, who decides after 20 years, like, okay, may as well bring this stuff onto eBay and get back into this hobby or try to see what my stuff is worth. So there's going to be a lot of other people that come out of the woodwork, I expect, over the next 5 years that have stuff that maybe don't really want to keep it or don't understand what it's worth or just don't really have any interest in the hobby any longer. So how can you know if it is too late to buy raw cards? Well, you have to ask yourself 3 questions. First, what is the card that you're actually interested in? Making a judgment about whether it's too late. So if you take a card like Yugioh, for example, from Pharaoh's Servant, first edition, there are people on TCG Player who allege to have near mint copies of Yugioh available, obviously for several $100s, with no pictures, of course, on the listings. And it's possible that some of those are in gradable condition, but you have to ask yourself, for heavy hitting cards like Yugioh, or the Blue Eyes White Dragon from LOB, or Dark Magician Girl, or even just pick your like major secret rare or some very iconic card from the original sets. If somebody is sitting on a copy of that that's in extraordinarily good, crisp condition, and they're savvy enough to get it listed on TCG Player or eBay, they're very likely to have thought about this prospect of grading and likely made a judgment that it was not in gradable condition. So just tread very carefully when you're dealing with very heavy-hitting cards. If somebody said, well, do you think there's still gradable inventory out there for commons and rares, for example, from LOB or Metal Raiders? Or perhaps super rares from some of the later sets, like Magic Ruler. There's probably some stuff out there, first edition, that you could find if you scout around on eBay and you look out for it, just because it's not going to soak up as much attention from people as the LOB Blue Eyes or the Yugioh or things that people, if you have that hanging around in your binder and it's first edition, you probably have a pretty good sense of you're dealing with something pretty important for the most part. So in general, I think the conclusion is it's probably too late these days to find gem mint or near mint copies of some of these really famous cards just off TCG Player and eBay. Very improbable that you're going to just stumble upon that stuff without paying an arm and a leg for it, or without being scammed, right, by somebody that already has tried to grade it and got a terrible grade or whatever. The next thing that you should ask yourself is, who is selling this card? If you see somebody is selling an alleged near mint copy of Injection Fairy Lily, and they're a seller on eBay that flips cards all the time and has a load of PSA graded stuff that they're selling, you should ask yourself, if this card were so good, why didn't they choose to slab it themselves and just grade it, right? Sometimes it doesn't add up depending on who's making the sale. If it looks like it's somebody that's just arrived on eBay, or somebody that sells lots of stuff on eBay but isn't really a trading card focused person, who maybe is just looking to offload some old cards they had 20 years ago, maybe those are the kind of sellers where you'd want to take a harder look at what they have, because those people may not have gone through all the trouble to get smart about the market, get smart about PSA and Beckett. They're just looking like open season, let's just see what the market is willing to bear and pay for the product, instead of having to go through the trouble to grade it. And before people think, well, whoa, does that mean like people are out there robbing, fleecing sellers who don't know what they have? More often than not, it doesn't happen, because there's so many people out there scouting the market for these cards that if some person, is in possession of an LOB Blue Eyes and doesn't actually know what they have, you're going to attract dozens of watchers on eBay, and you're going to get a pretty fair market price for what it's worth in rare format, in my opinion, just because people know what to look for. It's not that the eBay sharks are ripping people off who don't know what they have. As long as people take good pictures of their stuff and have a clear listing about what they're trying to sell, they're usually going to get a pretty good price. The market is hot right now for raw cards. When you're trying to make a judgment on whether it's too late to buy raw cards, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do with that raw card or cards? If you're looking to get it slabbed or graded by PSA or Beckett, then odds are pretty strong that the stuff that's still out there in the market that's easily accessible may not really be gradable inventory any longer. A lot of the stuff that was really gradable has already been shipped out to PSA. Let's say you're less interested in grading the card, but you just want to own a copy of that card. So maybe there's a certain monster from some set like Time Wizard or something like that, that you just want to have because you remember it as a kid, you'll take it in a condition that's near mint, not perfect. Maybe it's got an imperfection here and there. Probably wouldn't grade a 9 or a 10. Maybe it would get a 7 or an 8 if you sent it to PSA, if you're lucky. You can find a lot of cards at that level of quality available in the market still. If you're maybe looking to build a binder, or you're just looking to build out your personal collection, maybe to fill out a full set, right, in your binder pages, or just have a couple of cards that you want to keep in your collection in raw format, it's definitely not too late to go out in the market and find that stuff. There's lots of inventory available, first edition, from most all of the sets that kind of falls one rung beneath gradable potential. Stuff it's acceptable, but it might have like a little edge wear here, or maybe it's a little off center, or there's something wrong with it that would just throw off the grades. The one other point that I should add here is when you're thinking about whether it's too late to buy raw cards, look at other areas like Pokemon or sports cards where you see what happens over time for some of the very coveted cards is that even stuff that's not in great condition sometimes is actually still worth quite a bit of money for collectors that care about the cards. And you're starting to see this with the LOB First Edition Blue Eyes, where even PSA 5 or PSA 6, stuff that's like many rungs down from mint level quality, is still getting slabbed and actually still selling, sometimes for several $100s. And this also is happening with the Charizards, right? And the Black Lotus, the Mickey Mantle baseball cards. Like if you're somebody who has a PSA 4 or a PSA 3 Mickey Mantle card, right? That's a big deal. It's like, that's a piece of history. People will probably pay quite a bit of money for that, even though it's not like the PSA 10 or the 9, which is worth several $1,000,000. So I'm not saying that the LOB First Edition Blue Eyes is going to be Mickey Mantle level with respect to the price that it commands in the future. But what it says to me from a raw card buying perspective is that if you do stumble upon an LOB First Edition Blue Eyes that's in like acceptable condition, maybe it's not Gem Mint 10 or near mint, but it looks okay, that's probably still worth some money and probably will still appreciate in the future, just because it seems to be kind of the holy grail card of the Yu-Gi-Oh market. So it actually may never be too late to buy a first edition LOB Blue Eyes, depending on what kind of seller you get it from or at what price you're paying for it. So I guess the bottom line here is, I think in general, it's not too late to buy raw cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh market. I think there are exceptions. There are certain cards that you probably can't easily get in near mint condition anymore. But I think there is still a tremendous amount of potential out there in the market. And I think recent events like the massive discovery of those LOB and Metal Raiders boxes recently is an important reminder that there is still a lot of stuff out there that people don't know about. And if there's that many LOB boxes and Metal Raiders boxes that are sealed, you can only imagine how many raw cards are hanging around in people's attics and closets that have never even made it to PSA, that are just waiting to be discovered and waiting to be reintroduced into the market. So thank you again, everybody. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe to the video to help support our channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.